Nightcast. Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth brings you the current news from the world today and how it relates to Bible prophecy. Understanding the end-time events leading to the peaceful world tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth.
Good evening, friends, and welcome to this January 22, 2015 edition of Nightcast. Coming to you from our new virtual studio. There's several things we got to work out about it, friends, but we're working on that. Opening story tonight. New Jersey apartment block destroyed in huge fire.
In Edgewater, New Jersey, residents of an apartment complex have had to evacuate because a fire broke out and very quickly engulfed the building. More than 400 people in all had to vacate this as parts of the structure collapsed, sending embers across two neighboring properties. It's a huge fire, as you can see. In fact, it could be seen across the river in New York City.
Thank you. We understand there were no injuries. There were no initial reports of injuries in the blaze that broke out at around 16:30 local time. That's military time for 4:30 p.m. in the afternoon, local time in New York, New Jersey. Be 2130 Greenwich Mean Time, affecting about 400 residents. Authorities said everyone in the four-story building appears to have been able to get out safely, but they have not yet determined the cause of this huge fire. And that was Mike Embley with that live video report. Friends, the next story, probably most important story of the evening, we're going to go to right away. Barack Obama will not meet Benjamin Netanyahu in March. Benjamin Netanyahu and Barack Obama, seen here in this picture in 2012, have not seen eye to eye. The caption for this photograph in this news story reads, Barack Obama will not meet Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu when he visits in March to speak to Congress, the White House says. Spokeswoman Bernadette Meehan called a long-standing practice of not meeting heads of state close to elections, which Israel will hold in mid-March. Netanyahu was invited by Mr. Netanyahu was invited by House Speaker John Boehner in what is seen as a rebuke to Mr. Obama's Iran policy. The U.S. president has said he will veto attempts to add new sanctions on Iran. Mr. Obama believes new measures will be harmful to negotiations over Iran's nuclear program, talks Mr. Netanyahu has opposed. The Israeli Prime Minister has warned a deal between Iran and the U.S. will pose a threat to Israel. Earlier today, Mr. Netanyahu formally accepted the invitation from senior Republican Mr. Boehner, saying it will give him the chance to thank President Barack Obama, Congress, and the American people for their support of Israel. And friends, I have an analysis by BBC News Washington editor Nick Bryant. I'm going to read this to you. He says, a full-blown crisis was how Jeff Goldberg, one of America's leading Middle East commentators, described relations between the U.S. and Israel last October in an article that famously quoted a senior Obama administrative official describing Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in a most unflattering manner. His article actually says, in a most unflattering ornithological manner. Since then, relations have deteriorated still further. The news this week that Netanyahu had accepted an invitation from the Republican House Speaker John Boehner to address a joint session of Congress, essentially to deliver a rebuttal to the president's pledge to veto any new congressional sanctions against Iran, blindsided the White House. They complained that it was, quote, a breach of protocol. In announcing that the Prime Minister will not get to meet the President, the Obama administration is invoking diplomatic protocol again. But this will be widely interpreted as a snub and make a difficult relationship even more acrimonious. The caption on this photograph that's part of this news story, friends, reads, House Speaker John Boehner invited Mr. Netanyahu without consulting the White House. Well, you know, listen, whoever wrote that caption, when we look at the government of the United States, which when Jesus Christ returns is just one of many, all of man's governments are going to be eliminated when Jesus Christ returns. He is ushering in the kingdom of God. And as, let's see, can I zoom out here? I'm seated right in front of that picture, and we don't have the setup where I can can I move out of the way so you can see it? It's right down behind me on the bottom of that set of pictures. We don't have the camera shots where I can zoom that out yet. Let me see. Do I have it on another shot somewhere? Oh, yeah, I think I do. Now, we can just dissolve to this picture of the statue. Let me, we don't have all our camera shots set up yet. I wish we did for this new studio because we got some nice stuff in here. We've got the statue of the great image, a big statue, great image that was featured in Daniel 2, which was the statue, the great image that King Nebuchadnezzar had in his dream. And Daniel was able to interpret what that statue means. And let's see, here's that statue, I think. Yeah, there's the statue. The head of the statue, the head of gold, represented King Nebuchadnezzar, as Daniel was able to tell the king because of God not only interpreting this dream, but giving the dream that King Nebuchadnezzar had to Daniel also, because the king wouldn't reveal it to any of his magicians, to any of his counselors, to any of his wise men. He said, I want to know what this dream means, and to know that you're telling me the truth about what this dream means, you got to tell me what the dream was as well. None of his wise men, magicians, counselors were able to do that, but they told the king, well, there is one man who was able to interpret my dream, and the king said, bring him before me, and if he doesn't tell me the dream and what it means, he and all the wise men die. Well, Daniel was brought before the king, and God revealed not only the meaning of the dream, but the dream too, to Daniel. So Daniel was able to tell him, O King Nebuchadnezzar, you dreamed and saw in your dream this great statue which had a head of gold, and you, King Nebuchadnezzar, are that great head of gold, ruling the whole world, and top of a world-ruling, high-quality, wonderful empire. After you, the arms and breast of silver, that represents the second world-ruling kingdom. It'll be world-ruling, but it won't be the high-quality, gold quality that your kingdom is. After that, the belly and thighs of brass, be a world-ruling kingdom, but still inferior. And the legs of iron, representing Rome, it'll be strong as iron, but it'll be divided into two divisions, an east and a west. And then when we get down to the modern day, our day today, friends, we're down to the 2 feet of these legs of iron. And the 2 feet are part iron and part common clay, part miry clay, with 5 toes also mixed of iron and miry clay. And so the modern day, the seventh, the final revision of the Holy Roman Empire, the Roman Empire, which these 2 legs represent, east and west divisions of the Roman Empire, under a woman who rides what the Bible calls the beast. This Roman Empire is called a beast, and the woman that rides it is the false prophet. And when it is revived with 5 toes from the east, 5 toes from the west, none of them will get along even within their own eastern and western divisions, but some event will trigger them for a short time. The Bible calls it an hour, meaning just a short time. They'll give their power to one dictator, one new world-ruling emperor, whom the Pope will crown in a coronation ceremony, most likely in the Emperor's Hall in Frankfurt, Germany, where it's most often been done. And that'll be it for the world's governments, because the end of this scenario, when Christ returns just in time to save man from annihilating mankind from his misdoings, where he would have annihilated the whole earth, Christ will intervene just at the last second and stop it. The prophecy shows a stone coming from the heaven and smashing this great image on the feet and toes, and the whole thing topples. And that's to picture all of the governments of man being replaced by Jesus Christ, who ushers in and restores the kingdom of God. Now, I tell you that because this last comment, this caption that goes with this photograph, again, the caption reading, House Speaker John Boehner invited Mr. Netanyahu without consulting the White House. Well, big deal. The president often doesn't consult the Congress before he does things. Some of you may say, oh, yeah, but he's the president. Well, how is the government of the United States set up with a president? The president is the representative of the executive branch of the government. The executive branch of the government is simply supposed to carry out the laws that are already established or that are newly established by Congress. The president is not supposed to be creating law. And often this president, some others have used executive orders. You know, there may be a time and a call for it, and that people will, and the government will allow it, the people will allow it, the Congress will allow it. You know, this government is a government of the people, and that's from the bottom up. That's not the way God does it. So even this government is not a perfect government. It's the best thing that's been going on the earth so far that man has been able to come up with, but it's not perfect. It'll help write the lesson in history that man without God cannot govern himself. But even under this government, under the best of scenarios, if anybody should be consulting anybody, it should be the president. The executive branch should be consulting Congress before it acts on anything that is not absolutely clear. You know, well, should I do this or should I do that? Is this going to go along with what you get? You know, but no, they play games. But just this caption, I don't know, gets to me a little bit. House Speaker John Boehner invited Mr. Netanyahu without consulting the White House. Well, Congress doesn't have to consult the White House. You know, the Congress makes laws, and sometimes the White House acts contrary to laws Congress has passed, and gets a little bit too heady and haughty. And we certainly have a situation now, friends, that indicates very strongly that the people of the United States are not obeying our Creator. I say that because, as God explains in Leviticus 26, Deuteronomy 28, and I know some of you don't like these two chapters of the Bible. I've heard from you. You don't like the blessing and cursing chapters where God says, if you diligently hearken to my voice and walk in my ways and keep my commands, I will bless you galore. And he expressly states this, that, and the other thing that he'll do for you as an individual and collectively for all of you as a nation within your nation. But then he says, halfway through the chapter, on the other hand, if you don't obey me, it'll be just the opposite of those blessings. The opposite of blessing is cursings. And instead of making you the head as a nation, I'll make you the tail. Instead of 5 of you chasing 100 of your enemy, 5 of your enemy will chase 100 of you. Instead of 100 of you putting 10,000 to flight, 100 of your enemy will put 10,000 of you to flight. And then ultimately, I'll break the pride of your power if you don't obey me, if you continue in your obstinate and stubborn, rebellious ways. And the administration that we have that has shown itself to be feisty, naive when it comes to a lot of things. One thing that is obvious to not only me but some analysts is that Mr. Netanyahu has got a good understanding of Iran and knows you can't trust him. So did former Secretary of State Schultz. He said his experience dealing with Iran is that they'll smile at you, send you on your way, and cut your throat. Now, going back to Netanyahu, he's expected to discuss Iran as well as Islamic militant groups in his address to Congress on March 3rd. As a matter of long-standing practice and principle, we do not see heads of state or candidates in close proximity to elections so as to avoid the appearance of influencing a democratic election in a foreign country, Ms. Meacham said in a statement. Ms. Meacham, spokeswoman for the White House. She added Mr. Obama had, quote, been clear about his opposition, end quote, about new sanctions legislation. The president has had many conversations with the prime minister on this matter, and I'm sure they will continue to be in contact, end quote. Nancy Pelosi, the House's top Democrat, said the visit 2 weeks before Israel's election and in the midst of, quote, delicate Iran talks is, now I'm quoting Nancy Pelosi, she says, is not appropriate and helpful. Mr. Netanyahu is fighting a tough election against the Labor Party's Yitzhak Herzog, who was focused on the Prime Minister's cooler relations with Mr. Obama. And then, friends, our last story for tonight. I'm going very short on stories tonight as we try to get our new studio into gear. King Abdullah of Saudi Arabia dies. Saudi King Abdullah bin Abdulaziz has died in hospital, royal officials have announced. A statement made early on Friday, now it's already Friday over there, overseas, said his brother Salman had become king. Before the announcement, Saudi television cut to Quranic verses from the Quran, which often signifies the death of a senior royal. King Abdullah, who was said to be aged 90, about 90, had been in hospital for several weeks suffering from a lung infection. Abdullah came to the throne in 2005, but had suffered frequent bouts of ill health in recent years. I have an analysis, friends, by BBC security correspondent Frank Gardner regarding this story. I'm going to read it to you. The official announcement from the royal court came as little surprise, but this is still a historic and sad moment for the deeply conservative Muslim country, home to the two holiest sites in Islam at Mecca and Medina, and the world's biggest oil exporter and producer. As king, he pushed through cautious reforms, including giving women a greater public role against opposition from religious conservatives. King Salman assumes the throne at a difficult time for Saudi Arabia. Having defeated an Islamist insurgency 10 years ago, the country now finds itself sandwiched between the growing threats from Al-Qaeda in Yemen to the south and Islamic State to the north. Both groups have their sympathizers inside Saudi Arabia. King Salman, age 79, had recently taken on the ailing monarch's responsibilities. The late king's half-brother, who is in his late 60s, has been named the new crown prince, the official statement said. The BBC's Frank Gardner says Saudi Arabia could face an increasing internal security problem following the death of King Abdullah. All three are sons of the founder of modern Saudi Arabia, King Abdulaziz, usually referred to as Ibn Saud, who died in 1953. King Salman called on the royal family's Allegiance Council to recognize Muqwin as his crown prince and heir. His Highness Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud and all members of the family and the nation mourn the custodian of the two holy mosques, King Abdullah bin Abdulaziz, who passed away, who died at exactly 1 a.m. this morning, the statement said. U.S. President Barack Obama expressed his personal sympathies and those of the American people on the death of King Abdullah. As a leader, he was always candid and had the courage of his convictions. One of those convictions was his steadfast and passionate belief in the importance of the U.S.-Saudi relationship as a force for stability and security in the Middle East and beyond, he said. King Abdullah, key events in his life, he believed he was believed to be born in Riyadh in August 1924, although the actual date is disputed, but it's believed to be 1924. His mother, Fada, was the eighth of King Abdulaziz Al Saud's 16 wives, the eighth of the king's 16 wives, appointed commander of the Saudi National Guard in 1962. He became crown prince and first deputy prime minister in 1982 when King Fahd succeeded King Khalid. He succeeded to the throne in August 2005 following the death of King Fahd. And And that's it on that story, friends. And that's it for this Thursday night edition. We're off Friday night and Saturday night, God willing. And the creek don't rise. We'll be back again Sunday night with Friday, Saturday, Sunday's current news related to the Bible and prophecy here on Nightcast. Until next time, this is your host, Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth, saying thanks for joining me tonight, friends. And until next time, so long and good night.
You have been watching Nightcast with Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth. Nightcast can be seen Sunday through Thursday nights here on cogtv.org. Tonight's program is also available anytime on demand in the cogtv.org video archive.